January 8th, 2019 meeting of the Public Works and Planning Commission. I would like to welcome everyone in the audience, a very distinguished looking crowd. A full crowd normally means we have a full agenda, and that is correct, so I will speed along appropriately. First item of business would be to approve the last meeting of 2018, and I would like to call on Commissioner Piercy for that approval.
Chairman Cush, I have reviewed those minutes and find everything in order. I move for their approval.
All right. Did I hear a second? Thank you, Chantel. All in favor of approval of those minutes, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, that motion passes. Do we have anyone from the Highway Department? We do not, so we'll move along. No report then this January for the Highway Department. Building codes. Tanya, would you please entertain the group?
Good evening. How's everybody doing? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
So I will go over our monthly report first, very quickly, so I'm going to take it. We had a total of 147 permits issued in the month of December. 32 of those were single-family dwellings for a total revenue of $46,799. And if nobody has any questions, I'll move on to development tax. Can I just mention really fast before I move on to development tax that electrical permits, we took over electrical permits, as you know, December 1st. And the month of December, we issued 503 electrical permits. So we were busy for our first month. For a total revenue for the county of $2,535.
That included a new part-time person, right?
It did, yes. She started mid-December.
Good.
And that's working out very well. So development tax. For the month of December, we collected a total of $458,250.
That was twice the amount of November.
It was. We had Murfreesboro had a large apartment complex. You'll notice that the big jump was with the city of Murfreesboro.
Okay.
And zoning enforcement, we had a total of 105 inspections in the month of December. All right, so at the end of your report there, I included a very, very brief printout of the difference between 2017 and 2018, what we collected overall in 2018 as opposed to 2017. So in 2018, we issued a total of 3,161 permits. 664 of those were single-family dwellings for a total revenue of $985,929. And if you look at that same printout, I gave you 2017's also, just so you could see the difference. In 2017, we issued 3,481 permits. 786 of those were single-family dwellings for a total revenue of $1,103,854. Sorry. So we there's a difference of approximately 10% drop from 2017 to 2018, but approximately 10% increase from 2017 to 2018 in development tax collection. If nobody has any questions, I'll move on to the one other item that I had on the agenda this evening. Did anybody
We need to go
Oh,
ahead
sorry, you're right.
and approve those reports before we move on.
Make the motion to approve the report is presented.
Thank you. Need a second, please.
Second.
All right. All those in favor of approving those reports?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. All right. Tanya.
So I mentioned a month or two at a Public Works meeting that we were planning to adopt the 2018 code series in, myself and the city of Murfreesboro, the town of Smyrna, and the city of Laverne were all shooting to have them adopted and in effect by February 1st. And it looks like if this goes through tonight and then of course to the full county commission that we may indeed make that deadline. So I have attached to your, excuse me, put on your desk there because it was too large to attach in the iPad, a copy of the resolution to adopt those codes along with a copy of the changes for each of the code books. There's a lot of stuff in there. I don't expect you to read through it all tonight, which is why I brought a paper copy so you could take it home and review it. If you have any questions on it after we leave here this evening, please don't hesitate to give me a call or email me. I'd be glad to answer any of those for you.
So give us the down and dirty. This is a
There-
change to the building
Yes,
code,
we are
the
going
international
from-
building code,
right, we are
Southern
going-
building code?
We're going from the 2012 series,
Okay.
which we've been under since 2014, and we are now adopting the 2018 series across the board with the changes that are attached to this. There really was not a whole lot of major changes that would affect the builders cost-wise or really any otherwise. It was a lot of housekeeping, a lot of minor changes, but nothing drastic at all. We have offered between the 4 jurisdictions, we've offered 5 classes in the last 2 months for the local builders and stuff to advise them of the changes and just answer any questions or anything that they may have had. So we've had 2 of those, and we've got 3 more to go before the end of the month.
And my guess is we really don't have much choice in this. We have to conform to the
We have to
current
be
building code.
within 7 years of the currently the currently printed code. With having the 2012, we were within 6 years. When the 2021 would be printed, we would have been out of, we would have had to adopt it. So the cities were ready, we were ready, so we just decided to do it all at the same time.
All right, so will this then be a resolution that we need to take to full commission for approval? Okay, all right. So anything else or any questions the board has for Tanya on this matter? All right, anything else, Tanya?
Well, sort of associated with this, we also revamped, and I mentioned this a couple of months ago too, that we were going to try and expand the authority of our Board of Adjustments and Appeals to include some of the stormwater issues that we have in the county that there is no board to appeal to. So Josh McCreary has got the resolution for that. We haven't quite ironed out all the legal details, so we'll probably have that next month for you to review that. So that's in the works.
All right. Will that go before the environmental, will Judge Eyeshot or?
No, this
this'll
is
just
the
be
Board
an
of Adjustments and
internal-
Appeals.
This is internal.
This
Okay.
appeals any kind of decision that I would make within the office, and we're incorporating, the stormwater to
Perfect. Okay.
that also.
Very good. All right.
And just back on this, Chairman, you did have some builders on this board that, on your,
Board of Adjustments? and
yeah,
Appeals?
is that correct?
Do you mean on the adoption?
Yeah, to do.
On the
to
adoption,
correct
We
these
do
spot-
take into consideration, we meet with the Rutherford County Home Builders Association and also the National Home Builders Association. So they made some suggestions and stuff that we incorporated
Okay.
into our changes.
Okay.
And we'll meet with them at their breakfast next Wednesday morning to go over the final changes and stuff so that they can review them and ask questions.
Okay. Were there a contribution from the building community in the creation of these changes?
Correct, yes.
They contributed before, and the culmination was this?
Yes. The National Home Builders Association forwarded each of the jurisdiction directors their suggestions, and we got together and we did take a couple of them out of there that we incorporated into our changes.
Good point.
Thank you, Chairman.
All right, thank you. We probably need to have a motion to accept this resolution, so I would be looking for a motion to accept.
So moved.
All right, and a second? Second. Thank you. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you. Tanya, does that conclude your
That's
report?
it.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
All right, let's see, building codes, planning and engineering. Doug, what do you have for us tonight?
Oh, just a few goodies for you.
Good, good. We like goodies.
Hope everybody's doing well. I have Katie P. with us here today. She's going to discuss some of the
Hello, Katie.
stormwater issues that we've got. to discuss, but before we get into that, just our couple of normal reports. First of all, the available lot inventory, you have that on your iPad. Our total available lots through December of this year is 776. That's up a little over 130 lots from last year at this time, from 641. So again, with more plats being recorded and the fact that we're in the kind of the fall, winter season, building tends to slow down a little bit, but we're still seeing a pretty healthy amount of plans come in. Our last submittal we had just a week or so ago was fairly substantial. I was actually a little surprised considering the time of the year, but we're still plugging at them, so just to be aware of that. The other report that I'll have for you tonight is our rezoning report. We do have 2 items that will be coming before you next week. There were actually 3 rezoning applications. One of those was deferred. That would be the one on Franklin Road, Jim Heisen for Land Ventures Incorporated. That was deferred, so you won't see that staff report in with your packets, but the other 2 you'll have in there. The first of those 2 rezonings that you'll consider for next week is located along Highway 99. It's actually 2310 Highway 99, New Salem Highway. This is adjacent to Stonebrook Drive. There's a vacant lot, well, actually really 2 vacant lots there. One on the corner and the one next to that. The one next to it's actually being used as a staging area now for the road widening improvements that are going on currently on Highway 99. The applicant didn't really submit anything. This is more of what I would call a speculative rezoning request. They really just want to zone the property commercial services, which is fairly similar to what's out in that area. There's a lot of property like adjacent across the street that's already annexed to the city that has commercial designations associated with it. So really they're just in a position where they want to sell the property and they're trying to do it as in a commercial type manner. Now, that being said, staff did have some mixed feelings about the request. We didn't have a recommendation really up or down on this one. It was more of a neutral request from staff as far as any recommendation that we had, really just because of the timing of it more than anything. The fact that right now the lot really can't be used for anything just because it's being used for a staging area anyway. But during the Planning Commission's meeting, there wasn't really anybody who spoke in opposition to this particular request. One of the concerns staff had was that all the activity going on the left lot, I guess the westernmost lot, might damage the existing septic soils area, but the applicant's representative said they've been taking caution to make sure that the soils area is not disturbed in any way and feels that there's enough soil on there for potential commercial development. I think the commission also had some concerns about the timing, but since considering the area and the zoning that's already there from the city standpoint, they did recommend approval by a unanimous vote. It was a 9-4 and 0 against. So that item will be coming before you next week. The second item is for a plan development request located along Blackman Road. You'll have a copy of the pattern book on your iPads. It's called the Wayne Miller Smith Farms pattern book. They're proposing to construct a 203-unit residential development on the subject property. 145 would be single-family detached units, and the remaining 58 would be 2-unit attached product. There's quite a bit of information in there as far as minimum lot area and whatnot. I can give you as much information as you want tonight, but I'll make a more thorough presentation at the Board of Commissioners meeting next week. This will be on a step system, decentralized sewer system. Open space located throughout the development. We've been having a lot of discussion about mail kiosks and everything with the regulations that recently were handed down through the United States Postal Service. They've included that in the pattern book as well. From staff standpoint, we felt comfortable with the development. The requirements of the PUD appear to have been met. The applicant's also proposing a number of traffic improvements along Blackman Road to the entrances of their proposed subdivision with turn lanes, right-of-way dedication, and whatnot. The commissioners at the meeting had questions regarding the open space requirements, the ability of the attached lots to accommodate the step system requirements as far as lot width and those kind of things, make sure there's enough space for all the different easements, step tank easement, water connections, and different things that have to be included with that. There was also some concern about the number of vehicles that can be accommodated and the length of the driveways. The applicants kind of beefed up the pattern book to show just the number of cars that can park in the driveway, as well as the the requirements of the exteriors, they clarified that any exterior that faced a right-of-way would be a masonry, full masonry type construction. And again, that's been made pretty clear in the pattern book as well. So after discussion and following the public hearing, the Planning Commission did recommend approval of this application as well by a unanimous vote. So those are the two rezoning applications that you will have next week, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Doug, is that road, Turquoise Lane, would it run through that, it looks like that subdivision is,
Yeah, that's Heatherwood right behind
so
it.
it would
connect
be a
it.
separate subdivision though, but same connected
Correct.
roads? And
Yes,
so
sir.
they wouldn't have any gates there or anything? like
Correct,
that?
right, it's a
They just run
public
right
street.
into it?
Yes, sir,
Okay.
that's correct.
It exits on Florence Road.
Florence Road.
Yes, and as of right now, that is the only entrance
Yeah.
and exit into
Okay.
Heatherwood. So we like the fact that there'll be a connection here, another way in and out of this subdivision.
To,
for the
Black.
connectivity. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Just above Shelton Square, just.
Yeah, just to the
one
north.
farm.
That's correct. I think there's like a property in between the
Oh,
two,
yeah,
but
more.
yes.
Any other questions before we motion to accept Doug's report?
I'm sorry, just on the previous one, y'all were neutral. That's a phrase I'm not used to hearing y'all say.
Well, sometimes, the vast majority of rezonings that come through our office, I'll make either a thumbs up or a thumbs
Right.
down recommendation from staff standpoint. There are some that come through, just a few here and there, and this being one of them, where I can see it one way or the other, where I don't have strong feelings one way or the other on it. I think that this area will be commercial, just considering the development that's going on right now. It's going to be 5-lane, the fact that there's already commercial zoning that's been annexed into the city right across the street and just right down the Highway 99 there at Cason Lane. There's quite a bit of commercial development. I don't doubt that that's going to be commercialized. My biggest concern was just the timing of it, for one, and also the fact that I think that whole strip is going to be that way. I didn't want to see it piecemealed, one by one by one. Somebody else already came in within the last week regarding some of those other properties adjacent to those two that's probably going to make an application. So that's, I mean, it is what it is. But that was the biggest concern that I had at the Planning Commission. So it wasn't that I don't think that these properties will develop commercially. I think they will. But I also think that there's going to be an aspect of, are they going to want to use city sewer? And if they do, they're going to have to ask for annexation into the city anyway. So, you know, why are they coming to us as the middleman to get commercial zoning and then go into the city, I guess? That was one of the concerns I had.
Thank you.
All right, let's accept Doug's reports, please. Need a motion?
Make a motion to approve the reports as presented for the commission.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Doug, what else you got?
I'll take this one. You can do the thing. Okay. Tanya had just reported regarding the changes to the stormwater ordinance regarding the committee that is the one that any appeals go to. That will require some changes to the stormwater ordinance. So you'll see those coming at the same time when Tanya brings the recommendations. That's on the agenda for us to talk about. But there's also some advertising requirements that we have to meet as far as the number of days prior. So the fact that she's having to delay a month actually helped us, and the fact that we'll be able to do what we need to do. So next month, when she brings that resolution back, you'll have ours as well. So with that, I'll turn it over to Katie for the last.
Our education department is project and we're trying to find grant money basically. This will be our 4th annual Water Fest, where we spend a day at Old Fort Park training about 1,500 elementary school kids. So it's a huge deal, but we try to get them water bottles and little backpacks that they can carry their water, that they're refillable throughout the day. And instead of using, taxpayers' money, we're trying to find grants. So we found 2 different grants. They're non-matching. They just give us a check. One's with International Paper, which would be for this year, and then one of them's the Bonnaroo Works Foundation, which will actually be available for next year's funds. But we have to apply for it this year, so we need approval. And I can explain any more of that needed, basically.
So you're just applying for a grant, no matching funds,
No matching funds.
Free money.
Free money.
And if approved, it'll come before budget, so we'll still get to it.
Correct.
I'll make a motion to accept Katie's request.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you, Katie. That motion is accepted. All right,
That's
thank you, Doug.
great. Thank you.
everyone. All right. All right, we still have no one from the Highway Department, is that correct? All right. All right, we are moving now to the landfill report, solid waste report. Mac, I'm going to let you kind of dictate the order of presentations here and introduce some guests that you have, if you don't mind.
Okay. We have Darren Gore with the city of Murfreesboro, and he's going to do a presentation about some costs and some transfer station and some other things. And we have Republic Services, Dan Jameson and his crew have a presentation, then I have my normal reports. I suggest we let the presentations go first so they don't have to sit through our other
Hours and hours of reporting.
I brought breakfast. So. If you want to, let Republic go first, and then
All right.
let Darren go next.
Fantastic. Gentlemen, if you'd like to come up to the big table. You have the...
No, we don't have any.
No, all right, fantastic.
Be brief, and so we talked to the mayor about kind of giving an update as to where Middle Point was, and so really want to thank you guys for allowing me to be with you this evening. My name is Dan Jameson. I'm Vice President of Government and Regulatory Affairs for the Republic out of Phoenix. I've had the pleasure of meeting with some of you over the last several weeks, and appreciate your time, your interest in Middle Point Landfill. First, a little bit about Republic, since a lot of people still know us here as BFI. So Republic acquired the Middle Point landfill and acquisition of Allied Waste. Republic was incorporated in 1996 and has been around now. We're the second largest solid waste company in the United States, running about 10 million or 10 billion in revenue across the U.S. We manage about 193 active landfills, 90 recycling centers, 11 treatment and recovery disposal facilities, 63 landfill gas and renewable energy projects, and other hauling operations in 40 states and Puerto Rico. So we have 35,000 employees nationwide and serve over 3,000 municipalities. And one of the things we're proud of is our drivers, and we have 15 consecutive years of having National Waste and Recycling Association Drivers of the Year, and they're based on their safety records around the country. So we take pride in what they do. So with Middle Point, everybody knows it's been in operation since the BFI days, since 1988. We're sitting on 808 acres out there. About 200 acres are used for the landfill. About 25% of the total property footprint. We employ 33 people to operate the facility out there, and use another, right now, 40 contractors on site. So currently Middle Point processes about 3,700 tons per day, and we want to make this point clear and get it on the record, I guess, for everybody, is that we estimate the landfill has another 8 to 9 years of active life in its current configuration. So you've been hearing 6, 5, 4. It's what we reported to the state. It was 8.9 years. We'll report again in April. So we're pretty confident about that number, and want to make sure that everybody understands where our position is on that. So over the years, especially over last year, we've been investing millions in that site. We've made $2 million in improvements in the last year and upgrades to our leachate system and our pre-treatment facility of the leachate. More importantly, for odor issues and concerns, we added 41 vertical gas collection wells and 5 miles worth of new leachate collection piping. And we installed 22 acres of geomembrane, which, if you drive past there, you've seen a lot of activity of covering of the landfill, capping, and we got another 12 acres to go in capping that. So hopefully all this activity is resulting in an upgrade to our odor control systems. Besides the regular covering the waste daily, we think that that vertical gas collection system and those wells, as well as installation of a misting system, will help reduce and eliminate any odors out there. it also should improve our ability to control any kind of daily odors as we move forward. So as you get in the landfill business, the technology is changing daily. The waste stream is changing daily. What we took 20 years ago is not what we take today. There's a lot of different materials in that waste stream, and it's changed the way the landfills are managed today. As you all know, the neighborhood around that facility has grown considerably since the landfill was first opened. We work very hard to be good neighbors. We don't always succeed, but it's not for a lack of commitment or a lack of dollars that we're committing to the landfill. So, a long time ago, in '95, Rutherford County and BFI entered into that agreement with Middle Point, which allowed the county to send its household waste to the landfill for free. Later that year, there's another agreement that entered into the city of Murfreesboro that allowed them to dispose of their trash at no cost. We also pay the county a host fee that we collect with other customers, and we've calculated that the value of the free disposal and host fees of about $170 million to the county since '95. So you can see that we've been an integral part of this community for 30 years. We're going to be part of the community for 30 to 50 years past that, as we have post-closure responsibility. So as we look to the future, Rutherford County's, like many other communities that we have across the country, is facing an issue and dealing what do we do next and what happens. Given the fact that we do this everywhere, be real honest and say there's no silver bullet, not one technology, there's not one thing that's going to solve the solid waste issues that are out there. But for you, we appreciate the fact that you started the journey and are looking forward, and we hope to be part of that solution. You hired a consultant. We really weren't part of that process. We got to ask some questions. So it's kind of our first time really being on the record as to what our thoughts are and what's out there. Never got brought up that one of our proposed solutions is we commit to build a world-class recycling center in Rutherford County to collect recyclables, which requires the city of Murfreesboro to start curbside recycling for everybody. And we think that's something that should be pursued. We indicated a willingness to look into the possibilities of, do you combine the landfills, et cetera. Don't know whether that's viable or not, which was what originally we were looking at, an access agreement, just you can see whether that was viable, and the commission decided not to go forward with that. So certainly respect that and understand that process. Something that we would see something, if any of these solutions have to be an effort that involves the community, involves the commission, input from everybody involved to come up with the right solution, not something that some consultant recommends. So we're deeply appreciative of the offer to sit at the table, to have you come out and look at some of the world-class technology and things that we're doing in other parts of the country. So there are a lot of new technologies out there. Again, there's not a lot of silver bullets, and you have to be careful as to what direction you go. You don't want to get left holding the bag, so to speak, financially. And we can point you to a lot of examples of people coming in promising the world, and we're going to take care of this, and cities sitting there. Montgomery, Alabama is a good example, sitting on holding the $34 million worth of bonds, where a company came in and promised to take all their waste in one barrel, sort it out, and do everything, and it didn't work. So the city and the county got sitting there holding onto the bond money. So that's something we hope to steer you away from. We do this. We will see ourselves as a partner in the community, and think it's something that you don't need to pay consultants for when you can lean on our expertise as somebody that's going to be here in the community. So those decisions and transitions, obviously, to any kind of new technology or anything are going to really be the hard part here for the county and the city. New technologies are going to be expensive. It's not going to be a free ride for any kind of new technology. And recycling right now, if you're reading the newspapers, that market is kind of in flux, and whether you really got to determine what are the right materials to collect, how do you go about it, and more so, how do you educate the public? So if you want to do composting, we want to do recycling, everything else, a lot of education, a lot of commitment to the community has to be out there to make sure that it works correctly. And we hope when you come out and visit out in San Jose and in Las Vegas, you'll see some of the things that we've done. And you know, we've got, it's the largest recycling center in the United States is in Las Vegas that we operate, but it's also one of the largest educational centers for the school system out there. So we bring student tours through our recycling center every day, because that's really where you start the education on doing recycling right. So those are exciting things for us, and you know, toughest part here is that we know that the constituents here haven't paid for their services for the past, you know, 23 years, and you know, a lot of the infrastructure here has been geared towards disposal, and hopefully that, you know, you'll see other communities and other activities out there that we think that can make it a viable solution that takes a bunch of different parts and makes it work. So as you continue these discussions along a long-term solid waste plan, we hope you'll let us honor our commitment to be good neighbors, members of the community, and your current business partner, and take advantage of our expertise and our experience. So one of the things hopefully you got over the last couple of days is the quarterly report. One of the things in meeting with a lot of the commissioners here over the last couple of months was that BFI put out a quarterly report on what was going on with the landfill. And sometimes when you get too big, people forget the little things. And so we've reinstituted that. I don't know whether anybody got that quarterly report in your email. If not, I've got copies of it here for you.
I got the right.
And with that, I'll see if anybody's got any questions.
Any questions for Mr. Jamison? He made the trip from Phoenix, so might as well get his money's worth.
The $2 million investment, some of which was for odor control, was that voluntary?
Yes.
So y'all responded to a complaint from the community, or you became self-aware?
Combination of both. And just an overall, I think when Steve Smith, who's our engineer, he and I were brought in here, we kind of took a holistic look at everything and said, okay, what do we need to do better? And you know, that's tough to go back and ask for $2 million, but it's the right thing to do. And I think if you find out one thing about our company and our CEO, who started on the back of a garbage truck, is that we do the right thing. So, and we're committed to doing the right thing regardless of cost.
Is there any one thing in particular that creates the odor more than another that you take in?
Probably one of the biggest issues is the sludge issue, and I've talked to the mayor about that, is that, you know, if we could go, and this was an issue we had with the city of Nashville, is to go to pellets. And invest in a pelletizer to, you know, for Smyrna and for Murfreesboro, that would be very helpful. We've talked about doing some legislation to push and see if we can find some money to get those things so they're pelletized, because that is a big issue that's out there. And the material could be used for other things and marketed. So we think that would be one thing that would really help out the operation.
Is your sludge an import, or is it a byproduct of the landfill? Is it imported?
Yeah, it's coming from the city.
So it's imported.
You know, one of the things, you know, this committee, everybody has an opinion. The 21 commissioners all have an opinion. And some of the things that weigh heavy on some of the commissioners' minds, particularly the ones that are in that district or the neighboring districts, are, okay, do we, when we go forward, do we only deal with solid waste that is just generated by the county and forget about taking in other people's solid waste that we've been doing for years and years? Or do you go big or go home and generate a multi-million-dollar facility that requires you to take in waste from a regional standpoint? That's another big issue that we're going to have to
Yeah,
address.
and I think that's something that's an honest discussion to constantly have. To be honest here, that's paid the bills here, given the fact that the county has had free disposal, and when the deal was done, certainly weren't as many people out here as there are now. So that kind of ballooned and became kind of a big, expense for us over time. So that resulted in us, taking in other waste to cover those costs.
Have you reached out to any other counties that are utilizing your landfill and see if they would host this world-class recycling offer?
Yeah, we're
Another landfill?
talking to a little bit of everybody. So we don't know what the final solution is going to be, but we're having discussions with a lot of people, a lot of places.
But when your landfill at the Jefferson Pike location reaches capacity, y'all are not going home. You will still be in the trash business.
Oh yeah, we'll still
Other
be beer haul.
places.
Yeah, we'll still be hauling here, and we can't leave there. We got to take care of that place on a regular basis, and so long we're all long gone. So we'll be there for at least another 50 years past when we close it. Maybe we'll go skiing if the climate change keeps going the way it is.
Anybody else? I'm assuming that you will have regular meetings with the mayor and deputy
Right.
to the mayor and progress, things like that.
Right.
Discuss ideas, pitch ideas.
We're also going to be, from the tours that we'll be taking, we'll be videoing those so that the entire commission get a good feel as to what's going on out there and get to see, what the group that gets to visit sees, so that they have a good understanding of what's available, what works, and the biggest thing here is what works. I mean, we probably have 250 what I call black box vendors come through our company. We have a research engineering group that looks at all kinds of technologies, travels to Europe, looks at all this stuff. A lot of it will work in this room in a lab. A lot of it won't work when you put 100 and 200 tons on the ground. It's a lot different than doing it in a lab. So I call those black box technologies, or turning waste into wine. And you just got to be careful, because I think seeing things that are going on in the press now, you're going to see a lot of those people going to be coming to the county and offering stuff that nobody seemed to make work across the country. And you hear of a little bit of everything that's out there, and a lot of stories, but I challenge everybody to go out and find one that's working on the scale of, given the growth here in the county as well, that's going to work in 15 years.
The trip that they're going on to California and then back to Vegas, these are y'all's operations, correct?
Correct.
Do they run solely by themselves, or do they still have to have a landfill also?
They both also have a landfill.
Okay, so
But
it's,
the recycling center is totally separate. It's in the city, totally separate. That really diverts a lot of tonnage out of the waste stream, and you're taking 30-35% of the tonnage out of the waste stream when you do that. Same way with when you're doing the composting, takes another 10% or so out of that waste stream. Hopefully we'll have time in Vegas to go out. That we're doing an organics waste stream that's coming out of all the casinos, and we built right next to our landfill is a hog farmer, came out and built on our landfill and is feeding his hogs, and it's working so well. I think he's going to 5,000 head. He started out with 250 head, and then went to 500, and it's working so well, it looks like it's going to go to about 5,000 head.
Now, you mentioned it was in the city,
It's outside, the landfill's just outside of the city.
but recycle.
Recycling is right in the city.
Why?
Just where it is, you're collecting from every resident, and so it's just better getting those trucks in and out of that facility.
What sort of head start do they have on the recycling program that they've implemented? They do it 20 years ago, 10 years ago, or how?
No, surprisingly, you had Las Vegas, who, 636,000 homes out there. They just started doing it curbside probably about 4 years ago. They just went to single stream over the last year. We're still converting parts of the city. Before, they were taking your little bins that you get at Target, and everybody's kind of separating on their own, and stuff blowing through the neighborhoods. And it took a while. We talk about the issue of change, and the community fought us, didn't want to do recycling. A lot of them didn't want to have that extra cart there. Matter of fact, they had garbage service twice a week. They went from twice a week garbage to once a week garbage and once a week recycling. And we had protesters at every council meeting, didn't want to change their garbage being picked up twice a week and didn't want to recycle. So it's that education is really a big part of the problem.
How long does it take to build a state-of-the-art facility like you have in San Jose or something we would need in Rutherford?
Yeah, we looked here, 6 to 9 months.
Yeah, depending on permits.
Permitting is the biggest issue, but 6 to 9 months we can have a world-class MRF up here. Like I said, that was one of the things that when the consultant came to us, that was one of the things that we would commit to. We said, this is what's needed here, is curbside recycling and for us to build a MRF.
When you build that, how do you project future growth? How do you get that if there is no program in place? How do you guess what we might need where we're not building it?
We go to where we've been in other cities.
That are comparable.
Yeah, comparable
Okay.
cities, and where we see that growth trajectory in cities from, big cities in Texas that have done that. And, Arlington, Texas is a place that started out, kind of had a baseball park, and it's kind of now
There's a lot
a
of
huge
data
city.
out there where people, like, I know in Illinois, they sponsored a report, and they went around the whole state and took samples out of trucks and sorted it by material type, and so, and the US EPA does that, so there's a lot of data out there on percentages.
Are you mining or harvesting any existing landfills that you guys own?
We have done that in some places. That's one of Steve's expertise. So we have done that over the places. It's just a matter of cost. And do you really think, can you get value out of the material? The problem today is the commodity markets. I mean, China has totally shut off any imports of any kind of material, and so it's really tough to find markets of, good aluminum. You send over pristine aluminum, and they don't want it anymore. So it's the outlets now is the biggest issue.
Thank you.
All right, educational. Anyone else? All right.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you all. All right, Darren, you need a minute to set up?
Yeah, if you don't mind, I tweaked these PowerPoints
Okay.
way too much, and I think I've got a newer version here.
Did you over tweak?
Yeah, I've got hard copies that,
All right. Would you put that pile right in front of you? And Darren, why don't you explain as to why you're here and what we're going to see? And then and what your new role is with the city.
sure.
Pull this up.
Okay. My name's Darren Gore. I'm with the City of Murfreesboro. I'm the new Assistant City Manager over Utility Enterprises. Includes electric, water, solid waste, and the airport. Kind of an odd little throw in there, but it's a special revenue fund, so we're trying to see how we can My job, my role is to really take as many of the utilities or what you could charge as a user fee and take it out of the general fund, take it out of the tax base and put it into a utility or a self-funded user fee so that the end user pays for the service, right, a fee for service. So I want to start off by saying Republic is a partner with the City of Murfreesboro. We take their leachate, they too take our biosolids, and it's something that's worked for us. I think we make up, I don't know, 3,700 tons is the daily total. I think we may be about 3% of what they, our tonnage, I'd have to go double check, but I know it's under 5% of what we discharge there. And we do actually have a pilot right now. We're having it's more than a pilot, it's drying. We've got a thermal dryer that we're installing at our water resource recovery facility, formerly known as our wastewater plant, that we are drying about 10 to 15% of our biosolids to create a beneficially reusable product. It can be used as a soil amendment. Milorganite, if you go to Lowe's and you buy a 40-pound bag of Milorganite, that's actually pelletized biosolids that can be used as a soil amendment. But what I want to go through with you today is really, it's a pro forma, it's a forecast, and I want to start off by saying I have not talked to Republic. I have used the consultant study. If the consultant study's wrong and we need to revise it, that's the beautiful thing about a pro forma. We've built the model, and we do this a lot in the water industry. Things change, right? Emerging technologies come up. Someone comes up with a better mousetrap, and guess what you do? You adjust the numbers and you rerun them. So this is not something set in stone. This is I kind of pride myself in getting things off center. After, I guess, GBB, and I was not actually involved with the consultant study either. I forget what GBB stands for. Gershman, Brickner, and Bratton. I was not involved in any of that where the county and the city collaborated in creating this vision document. So I've kind of got to come in, I think, with fresh eyes. The city wanting to set up a user fee, and you've probably seen it all over the paper, $5 a month per cart that we're charging. That's only about 30 to 40% that recovers our full cost. It really needs to be around $12 a month per cart. Recycling is, and curbside recycling is something that we're exploring, but I know right now with the market that will cost more. It's not going to. I think recycling in the past has been something that you bring in the commodity and you sell it and you make enough revenue to cover your expenses. Right now with the China sword, I guess is what they're calling it, nobody's buying that commodity right now, that recyclable, because China was the main purchaser of that. So this is a first blush look. What I did for the city, talked with Mac. Some of you all came to the presentation I gave to the city. I've tried to flip it to see if the county wanted to become a full self-funded with no other revenue streams, what would you have to charge at your convenience centers if you wanted to become a full enterprise or a self-funded operation on solid waste? Some of the assumptions based on what I heard tonight would be wrong. If it's 8.9 years left in the landfill, I've got 2024 as kind of an expected date for the landfill to close. So take these numbers and shift them 3 years. That's again the pro forma, the fluidity of a pro forma. Things change, you make adjustments every other year, every year you update it. So I'm going to review some of GBB vision documents, components. Look at a 15-year pro forma. Scenario number 1 is establishing a Rutherford County Solid Waste Authority. And if scenario number 2, if Rutherford County does not create an authority and you had to deal with your waste independently at the convenience centers, what would that cost? So, and developing a fee schedule to support that. And finally, this just does presume, as I said earlier, a fully self-funded enterprise. If you have other revenue streams you still want to dedicate to solid waste, then all these numbers can be adjusted downward. I'm throwing out this is the first spitball, I guess you could call it. It can always get refined beyond this since we have the model. The model's been developed. I'm not a consultant. I used to be a consultant, but I'm not a consultant now. Work for the city, so I'm free of charge. So review of GBB's vision document. This is what was published in August of 2018. Didn't sound like there was a whole lot of collaboration with Republic. I would highly recommend that as we move forward, that collaboration and utilization of their expertise would be capitalized on. What GBB said is a transfer station needed to be built in 2024, and if you don't know what a transfer station is, that's just taking your curbside collection garbage or your convenience center garbage and transferring it into an open bay, over-the-road semi to take it to a different landfill. And then in 2030, they're talking about a mixed waste processing facility, or dirty recycling it may be called, and where you actually develop a refuse-derived fuel, which is something that can be sold. It's kind of a combustible material. I'm sure Republic can school me on that more than I know about it. But this again, I had to start somewhere, and with the county and the city collaborating on this vision document, these are the numbers I had and the dates that I had. So right now, the city of Murfreesboro is spending about $5.1 million annually. I added about $850,000 for equipment replacement costs in their pro forma with the county. $5.4 million is what it's costing you right now for convenience centers, plus some of the what we call them, Mac, that you pick up, the
Winter crews, the schools.
the school front load, or the boxes. So again, in 2024, they're saying that there's some capital cost if you put in some transfer stations of about $5.3 million, with an annual operating cost of about $17.2. And in 2030, you come into a mixed waste processing facility for about a $22 million capital cost, and that annual operating cost goes up to $28.7. But there's about $10 million. You can take $10 million out of that because they expect about $10 million in revenue of selling that refuse-derived fuel. So really, it's about an $18.7 million operating cost. Again, don't want to shirk this responsibility, shirk the number. But this is numbers that I took straight out because I wanted to get something in front of our city council and show them what the future kind of, at least through GBB's report, showed. This is the top line is population. The red, blue, yellow, black bar shows the tonnage that's expected to be generated. It's saying that there's anticipated about 348,000 tons of municipal solid waste processed in 2024. Okay? So that's forecasted with growth. It's saying that right now, Rutherford County is about 13% of that, which represents about 45,000 tons. I got some of Mac's numbers, and bear with me here. The bottom line, those front-loaded boxes are the ones that are picked up mainly for schools, I think, Mac?
Right, schools.
And then you've got convenience center open top tonnage, which is your bulk item dump. And then you've got your convenience center compactor tonnage, which is your municipal solid waste. And so the blue line is really just the purple line and the yellow line added together. Adding that all up, I'm saying you're going to be more around the 50,000 tons, which is close to the 45,000. I mean, but to be more conservative, you assume maybe you generate a little bit more tonnage in 2024. This is just extrapolating those trends out that I think we went back to 2008. So again, the population increase. What I had to do with convenience centers, it's a little bit tricky, and this may or may not be right, but again, it's kind of a spitball. I assumed that there was about 45 pounds per dump for MSW per trip to the convenience center, and about 180 pounds per bulk item dump, and that 20% of the trips to your convenience centers are bulk item dumps. I had to do that to come to back into what I'm about to show you, a per dump fee to recoup your cost. If you wanted to charge people every time they walked into the convenience center for either a bulk item disposal or a garbage MSW disposal, what would you charge them in order to recoup that $5.4 million? So again, assumptions upon assumptions. This has to be refined and reviewed and updated, but it's a starting point. So the first question really does become, is the Rutherford County through interlocal agreements, do you want, is that something that the county is interested in being responsible for all of the solid waste disposal items for the county? And Murfreesboro and Smyrna and Laverne and other folks in the region would be a customer of them, or would you look at a solid waste authority? Conversely, is Rutherford County not interested in doing that, and would you want to go, independent or solo? This is how I looked at Murfreesboro. Same thing. I said, if there was an authority and Murfreesboro was a customer authority, there'd be cost A. And if Murfreesboro did it independently without collaborating with anyone, there would be a cost B. And what do those two costs look like compared to each other? So again, that's what I'm just saying. Two scenarios. One is that a Rutherford County Materials Management Authority would be formed. And secondly, Rutherford County would build its own transfer station and fund all expenses to dispose of its solid waste in an alternate landfill. All right, so I had to go in and pretend that I was the Rutherford County Materials Management Authority, and I would take all 348,000 tons in 2024. What would I have to charge per ton in order to recoup that 17 million and that 28 million in expenses? So you pay for the transfer stations, and then you've got the operation and maintenance of those stations. And then in 2030, you build the mixed waste processing facility, and then you've got the O&M operating costs. So that's what the kind of the if I was a county management authority and I had to build what am I going to charge per ton? This is my revenue requirements. This is where we talk about flow control. This is something I didn't know about until a couple of months ago or a month and a half ago. The flow controls are provisions that allow state and local governments to, in essence, become a monopoly in municipal solid waste. An authority can dictate that every private hauler, every municipal hauler bring solid waste to their facility. If it's one point A, point B, if there's half a dozen different locations, there are provisions in the law that allow that authority to dictate, monopolize how that solid waste is handled. So if the authority, 348,000 tons times $53.50 per ton in 2024, that covers the operation, the maintenance, and debt service. You can actually reduce that to $50.50 per ton in 2030 because you are getting that revenue off of the refuse-derived fuel. So you can kind of see the projected revenue matches that expense, that revenue requirement curve that I just showed you a while ago. So if Rutherford County, this is what Rutherford County, if you were absent the convenience centers, assumes 14% or 50,000 tons in 2024. That is what you would, in essence, be paying as a customer to an authority. Now that's just a part of it. I'm going to go to this next slide and remember the blue and the orange. That's that number. That's 28.3%. You still have your education and information component in your budget, the convenience center operation budget, landfill post-closure, revenue expenses, and other waste collection. So that's really the full, if you were an RCMMA customer, 28.3% of your cost is paying that that materials authority. That's your 28.3 is your expenses. The rest is your current, expenses that you have as a county running the authority and the post-closure requirements you've got on the landfill. So this is what it looks like. This is the long and short. You're clipping along with growth about 3% per year, and then you have a 46% bump, and then you're clipping along with growth again at about 2.8%. Again, based on what I just heard, if that doesn't happen in 5 or 6 years, if that happens in 9 years, you're still going to experience some increase because your free tipping fees are more than likely, don't say they're going to go away again, If they go away and you start having to haul your waste somewhere else, or you have to start paying tipping fees to someone else, you can expect that kind of increase. What does that look like? So if you, in order to meet those revenue requirements as a fully independent enterprise or utility, you have to, if someone's coming in once per week to dump their trash at a convenience center, if you're charging $1.50, $2.50, $3, you would have to ultimately get to about $4.50 per dump that you're charging someone that's using that facility for garbage. To cover your cost right now, there's a break even of about $3 per dump for MSW and about $12 per dump for bulk item. Again, assuming that's 4 times the weight. I know this is a lot of information, but I'm just, again, just trying to give you a crystal ball here. That gets you, the blue line is your annual surplus deficit, so you get into the black there for a couple of years, and then the blue line dips back down into a negative condition when the landfill closes, and then you kind of pull out. The red line is where if you're keeping a fund balance, when does your fund balance become positive? You go from a deficit to a positive fund balance. That's 15 years at charging those per dump fees. Now, what if the Rutherford County went by itself, or was not a customer of an authority? You got your education, the convenience centers, the post-closure, the landfill O&M, other collection, hauling costs, hauling costs and tipping fees, and transfer station O&M, and then transfer station debt service, because you had to build it. That shows it's about 13 to 16% more expensive. So you're looking at 3%, 65%, and back to 3%. So it's a little, you see in that 2024, it's a little bit cheaper, in my opinion, and it worked out this way for Murfreesboro. If an authority, we were a customer of an authority that was dealing with the total tonnage of MSW, than doing it independent. And that's just because if you build your own transfer station, you've got to get another 5 folks, right? You've got to get some other personnel to operate that transfer station, and then you've got to contract for that overland hauling and that the tipping fees that you're paying to some other landfill. So it changes it a little bit. It goes from about $2,800. That $2,800 is a 15-year outlay for, say, a Rutherford County resident that uses the convenience centers. If you went by yourself, that's the blue line, it's about $3,100. So again, the pro forma shows the same, it's pretty much the same shape. You get into a positive fund balance and a positive annual operating condition towards the end of that 15 years. So, potential convenience center fee schedule. This is kind of if you wanted to charge per dump, or you wanted to sell punch cards, and you wanted if somebody wanted 50 dumps at the convenience center, you charge them $100, that's $2 per dump. And 5 convenience center visits with open top bulk item, that's $40. So $140 for the year gives you 50 trips to the convenience center to dump your garbage. And for $40, you get 5 bulk item dumps per year. And then you would have to escalate that through 2033. Again, can't say this enough. This is assuming no other revenue sources. This is assuming trying to make this a totally independent user fee, where the convenience centers and all those post-closure expenses and all the expenses you currently have as a county could be funded through people utilizing your convenience centers as a dump site.
And those numbers allow us to break even.
It shows you your negative. Well, that's where if you look right here at the
Peak.
yeah. Well, this is the number where I say the break even. That's where I came up with that $3. In 2021, you break even because you're at zero. Then you go positive, and then when you have to build the transfer station or you become a county authority, that's where that drop occurs. You've got that 45 to 65% increase. Then you bring it, then you can bring it back up, annual expense.
And that the next chart would, assuming all those assumptions, this would quote
Right.
pay for it.
Yes, right.
$360 would be an anticipated annual expense of a citizen to dump their garbage.
In 2031. Now, the break-even cost right now, I'm saying is about $200 to $210.
Per year.
Right. Because you're negative those first 3 years, so in the fourth year, so that's right in that area, 2022. Assuming again that the expenses I've laid out there are accurate. So I did a sensitivity analysis, and I did this for Murfreesboro. I didn't really do it for the county, but assuming that for every additional 50 miles of haul, that increased your total cost by 2%. For every $10 per ton tipping free, that increases the total cost by 3%. And for every, right now I've got it, I'm assuming $2.50 per mile for a 20-ton semi-trailer. So if that goes to $3 per mile, gas prices or whatever, if that goes to $3, $3.50 per mile, that increases it by 2% too. So it kind of shows you that if you end up paying more tipping fees, you have to haul it farther, or if trucking costs go up because of fuel expenses, kind of gives you an idea of how it would adjust those numbers.
Not exorbitant.
No. And so what next? I said, if you're interested in charging a fee, I think you need to start counting the trips made to the centers for what purpose, either MSW or bulk item disposal, and determine if you want cash handling there or if you want a centralized, punch card or swipe card or whatever the technology you would use for people to use. I'm not advocating at all that you do this. I'm just saying if you're interested, this would be the next steps. And then again, the ongoing investigation. This is where you say, this is the first idea out of the gate. As I told my city council, I've got to give you a sure thing. I've got to tell you that if the landfill closes by X date, what are we going to have to do to cover our expenses? And that's the surefire thing is you got to haul it somewhere and dump it at another landfill. Now, if there's composting, if there's a mixed waste processing facility, if there's recycling options, all those things can be factored in, and those numbers can be readjusted. Again, I did this in my part-time, right? As I'm sitting there, I'm not trying to sell you anything. I'm with the city. I mean, we're trying to do it ourselves. We want to work with the county. We want to work with Republic. We want to do everything possible to diminish the cost to the citizens of the county. Because Murfreesboro, we're the county too. So every alternative should be explored. I think that's what the trip coming up is looking at. And obviously recycling is something that I've been tasked to look at, curbside recycling, single stream, multi-stream options. What do we do there? So that's my deal. That's my presentation. A lot to chew on, I understand.
Well, I want to pat you on the back. This is a very nicely done presentation with a lot of thought. And although it is a moving target, your assumptions, you clearly stated to us that there are a lot of assumptions made, but your assumptions are based on validity and based on the report that BBG or whatever their initials are gave us. So they're not far off.
Well,
they're in the ballpark.
I was not integral to that development of that vision document, but it's something that I had to use as a foundation.
Yeah.
If it's wrong, it'll be proven to be wrong in the future. If it's right or close to right, then I mean it'll flesh itself out. I mean, this is what I'm saying. A pro forma is something you look at year to year to year and you refine it. This is a shotgun right now. This is not a.
I understand.
Yeah.
But it's a very solid first attempt. and I want to thank you for
I
that.
appreciate it. That's what I was trying to get across is let's make an attempt and then let's get something, I call it the dartboard. Everybody can throw darts at it. Let's just create the dartboard and start poking holes at it. Doesn't hurt my feelings a bit. I don't have a fee based on whether it's right or wrong.
Which one, on the tour, we'll point out, we think there are some major fatal flaws in the GBB assumptions and report that, we've taken a look at and had somebody independently take a look at. And so we'll share those with you that could alter your assumptions.
Yeah, that's fine. I'm not holding on to this tightly.
Yeah.
If there's some inaccuracies in it, let's flesh them out and redo the numbers.
Good. Any questions for Darren on the board?
But with the report that Darren prepared for the city, and this one he just presented to you, it shows that working together is cheaper for both of us.
Yeah, that's probably the main point, is that there's collaborating together will be a cost reduction for everyone.
Goes without saying.
Yeah, it's kind of common sense
I mean,
stuff,
come
right?
on. Yeah. Very good. All right, Darren, thank you.
No, thanks a lot. Appreciate
All
y'all.
right. And we'll go still. Yeah, yeah. We'll reach out to you again if we have questions. All right. All right, Mac, would you like to bring us home?
Thank you, sir. Well, we're probably at least halfway through anyway.
Good.
We'll start with our normal landfill report first as usual. And then on that report, you should also see the report that we had to send to the state. The state now has all the C&D sites reporting the amount of debris coming in. And I totaled that up for you. There's 3 pages of it. And it's county of origin or state of origin. And Yolanda at the landfill just goes by the car tag. So if it's from Florida, then she says it's from Florida. So that's where all those numbers are coming from. Most of those are going to be residents that have moved here from Florida and just haven't changed their tags yet. And then if you remember at the end of February of 18, we stopped taking C&D material. So we're only taking brush and tires. So when you add all that up together, it's 5,856 tons is what we actually took in last year. That's the similar report as what Dan was talking about, as they send to the state as well. And then also on that landfill report, you'll see the revenue is quite a bit down from what it had been in the past. You remember we closed Friday afternoon before Christmas and didn't open back up until the day after New Year's. Middle Point loved us for that, so they gave them some extra business. Is there any question on the landfill report?
Do we need to go ahead and approve that? Or should we just wait till? Okay. Continue on, Mac.
Okay, and then let's go into the convenience center report. And what I'd like to do is there's a budget amendment that I'd like to go ahead and get out of the way if we could.
Let's do it.
We've been working on the Leanna site. We're getting very close to having all the construction drawings ready to where we can go for some reason planning engineer wants us to come see them for permits and stuff, but I have to get all that approved, but hopefully we'll have all those drawings done by the end of the week. And what we're having is consultants and engineers working on the site plan itself. We've got engineering people for electrical, for landscaping, and everything that's going along with that piece of property. So it should be a total package once we get it finished. And if we had in our budget $25,000 to spend on engineering, and we've got about $5,000 of that left. Talking to Triad, they're the ones that's doing it for us. Our bill that should be coming next month at this point is already going to be $20,000. And it's not going to be a finished product yet. We're still going to have some other things to do. So we're going to ask for a $35,000 budget amendment in hopes that it will get us through all the planning and engineering for this project.
From 25 to 60?
Yes. Those people are expensive. extensive.
Why was it off so much?
Well,
Did they give you an expectation of 25?
No. No, when we started this process for the budget process, we weren't to this point to know what we were gonna do. So I just assumed we could get it done for 25,000. Of course, apparently I assumed it's a whole lot less than what it actually is.
And this 60,000 will generate construction documents
Yes.
for site work, landscaping, site electric, and what this structures, what is it?
All the structures.
The architectural too, then.
Did you say you had a bill coming
Yeah.
for $20,000?
Right.
We really don't have a choice, man.
Yeah, we're 1,500 already. I was just trying to get some context of 60,000 in document preparation. Like the facility's gonna be how much?
How much are we gonna totally spend?
Yeah, is it, when is it?
We've already ordered the containers and received part of them, so just the roll-off containers and compactors alone, there's $161,000. The privacy fence and chain link fencing, we're looking at somewhere north of $80,000. And then you got all the site prep to go on top of that, and I'm estimating roughly $200,000 there. And then, once you get, then you got structures, as far as the roof over the packers, the structure for the automotive fluid collection, the structure for the convenience center attendants, and then the solid waste / fire department building. So once we get said and done, we're gonna be $450,000 or so.
Is that including the grant money?
The grant, no, we have to spend the money and then get reimbursed for the grant. So once we spend all the money and get reimbursed, we'll get $100,000 back.
So you're saying at the end of the day, when all this is finished, our cost will be $350,000?
That's right. If all that math works right. But we've got it's a matching grant, and we're at 50% match. We've got to spend $200,000 to get the 100. So the fence and the containers alone will take care of that.
Is it accurate to say that from the 25 to the 60,000, some of that, not all of it, but some of that, redrawing and redrawing to accommodate, trying to make everybody happy?
Yeah, oh yes. Every time you ask them to do anything, they charge us. I like them, but they still do it. And of course, some of this, and we'll talk about Rockville here a little bit, some of this money was spent in Rockville to start with.
What's your wishes?
Make a motion that we approve the budget request as presented and forwarded on to the budget committee.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye. Oh, I'm sorry, roll call. We need a roll call.
And who was your second?
Shanton.
Commissioner Dodd?
Yes. Yes.
Commissioner Jernigan? Commissioner Piercy?
Yes.
Commissioner Sereno?
Yes.
Commissioner Turner?
Yes.
Commissioner Rather?
Is it a conflict of interest for me to vote on, this may be a joke, but it sound like one, but if this is my district and I've been involved with this, trying to be involved in a lot of this, there's, okay.
It's not a conflict.
I was making sure. Yes.
Commissioner Kush?
Yes. As long as you're not profiting financially, are you?
No, I'm not paying him nothing.
So no, you are not in a conflict of interest. Yeah.
In many ways.
All right, thank you for that. We're still experiencing a lot of phone calls from the Rockville community. Don't know if any of y'all are getting them or not, but
Yes.
you are? Well,
Yes.
good. I give them your name.
Yes, thank you very
I
much.
did
Well, when I get a phone call, who do I talk to? I
Yeah.
report to Mike Push.
Yes,
Just call him, here's his number. But you know, of course, we was going to try to do something at Rockvale, and that fell through. And we've implemented at Rockvale the safety changes that we were needed to make because of the incident we'd had in Southern Center, and it had a big injury. That's to stop and wait your turn, one person at a time, and all that kind of stuff. And that's a big change for those individuals out there, so they're not happy with that either. But it's creating a backup. A few county folks and I met out there probably a month ago, I guess, and then local resident Ron Williams and I met out there as well, trying to look at ways to flow the traffic better. Don't want to spend a lot of money on it because that center will soon be, once we get Leanna built, will be the smallest center we have. So it needs some changes. Ron had a pretty good idea. I'll give him credit for that. It's probably the only one he's ever had. But come in the driveway going to the fire department, and which winds up putting you behind the convenience center, opening a gate there, bring you in that direction, which would get some of the traffic off the street. With some of the traffic issues we've had out there, that's not going to get everybody off the street, but it's going to help. And then part of it's going to be trying to educate our residents. When I left church Sunday coming home, I could go right by the Leanna Center, and I had to stop in the road because they were backed up in the road. It was swapping out the trash compactor. And I didn't have any trash. I was just waiting in line to get by. And I looked over at the line. I pulled off the road and walked over, started directing traffic and pulling them up. Most of the cars were sitting there with 15 feet of space between them. So once I got everybody to pull forward, there was nobody in the street. But this compactor guy, our guy hadn't finished completing changing out the packers, so it wound up in the street before we got finished. But that's where we brought them across that parking lot to help alleviate that Leanna issue. So this would be a similar thing at Rockvale. And then when we looked at the different things at Rockvale, trying to improve what we have. The Rockvale Center and the Leanna Center are the only two centers that you can only get to one side of the compactor. So that's one lane of travel. So when we finish what we're going to do at Leanna, we'll have 5 lanes of travel. So that's going to move a whole lot quicker. The thought process at Rockvale was to try to create another lane of travel on the opposite side, which there's some space there. But to do that, you got to move the water utility because it sits in there, and then the little building sits in there. So you'll have to move those out of the way to create that lane. Another suggestion was to move the compactor into the middle of the center. Well, if you do that, then you're going to wind up losing some open top space because you got to, what most people don't think about is you got to leave space for our truck, not just the vehicle traffic. When I talked with the mayor about it, he said, what if we leave the Rockvale store where it is and build the center across the street anyway? So what I handed out this morning, I called Triad, because I'm sure this cost us some money too, and explained to Jeff what we wanted to do. So that drawing that I passed out to you is just that. It was the most recent drawing of doing the Rockvale Center with the store moved back off the street and to the left. So what we've done with this is leave the store where it is and use that space to get in and out. Now Jeff has it actually backwards from here. You see the arrows going in on the right side and coming out on the left side of the store. That lane of travel would need to change. And then the compactor pad itself would need to rotate, what would that be, 80 degrees, 90 degrees, to change, because we're changing that flow. But that's to fix the problem, that would be the nearest thing that would need to do. Not asking for a vote, just discussing that for now. But
So, refresh my memory, this property has a has a water line underneath it, correct?
yes,
Would that have to be moved?
Consolidated Water, when we originally looked at it, the water line that comes through that piece of property and goes almost over to where the compactor pad is, circles around behind the store, leaves the property, and then turns and goes across the street. Everybody's looked, there's no easement for that. I don't know how it happened and why it happened, but they were willing to, at their own expense, once the store was removed, to straighten that water line up and do what they need to do. So the water line is in red and it's still drawn in there to show you, and it's showing it actually running into the store. So it may be to where they can get short of the store and then cross the street and do what they need to do. But the compactor pad, one of our original drawings, which we've moved it since, was to allow the water line to stay where it is and not put the compactors on top of it. But I would still suggest that we work with CUD to move that water line, and we still work with the highway department to give up some of that right of way. They've got extra right of way there that they really didn't need. And all that was part of this plan.
So your last conversation with CUD is if the water line would need to be moved, they would do it at their expense?
Yes.
Are you pushing the road right of way away from the store, so the store wouldn't be as close to the edge of pavement
No,
as it currently is?
the edge of pavement we can't move, but the right of way between the edge of the pavement and the property is much more right of way than they need. So the highway department would abandon part of that right of way.
How much would that be?
I don't remember off the top of my head. Several feet.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was 10 feet. I don't know what the.
I think it's at least 10 feet from the
Yeah,
road.
Oh, it's
Before
more-
you get to that berm, you're at least
Oh,
10 feet off.
from the asphalt to the berm is more than 30 feet.
Is it that much?
Yeah, because you can park a vehicle in there and have plenty of room.
Regarding the existing landfill, the existing recycling center, you have changed your flow of traffic? Have you opened
We
the
have
back
not.
gate as
No,
suggested?
we have not done that yet.
That
With the weather and the
could be
holidays.
done, okay. Do you have to do any grading or improve the roadway or the driveway to get out?
Eventually we would. Because the old driveway right now is in pretty decent shape, but it doesn't get a lot of traffic. So when you start putting a lot of traffic across it, then it's probably going to present a problem.
So to open the back gate, that, and throw Little Rock down, that gets those cars off the median and off the road?
Some of them.
Gives them staging area.
Right.
Is this the driveway map? Over here?
Yes.
Is this,
And then this building, the white roof can be removed. They don't, the fire department doesn't use it anymore. I don't think we actually have a need for that building, but it would help line up to make it a little straighter going into the compactor.
If I remember correctly, the group that was out there looking at the old center, the current center, it was finally determined, and I think Commissioner Reed may have used this term, putting a Band-Aid on a gaping wound. And that Band-Aid was going to be $25,000 to $30,000 at least, if I remember correctly.
Right.
With the growth anticipated out there in the new school, we spend $25,000, $30,000 on the existing landfill, and within a year or less, you're in the same spot you are today. And I think it was the general consensus, the best thing to do is utilize the property across the street.
Right.
Because this is, it's just not going to be doable.
You have any more questions on that? I mean, I'm not asking for a vote or anything, it's just that we have an issue out there, we're gonna have to come up with something and try to alleviate that issue.
And this is county-owned property.
Yes.
Is that all the property we own out there anywhere?
As far as I know. Well, the county owns some down where the community center is, but there's not space down there to do anything, where the old school used to be.
You think there's anybody, how big a spot do you need? 2 acres?
I'd like to have 2 acres. This spot is like roughly 1.5 acres.
You reckon there's anybody out there that would sell us 2 acres reasonably?
I don't have an answer to that.
I guess,
We
To
haven't
move it
gone-
away from the store issue?
see, that's my thing. From day one, which for us, when I was on property management, when this thing came up, which was over a year ago, to me, this didn't pass the smell test in terms of why would you want this on the main drag coming into Rockville? Why would you not, I mean, whether in the future you wanted to put a transfer station here,
I mean, why would you not want to move it off the main drag out of sight and not have this be the gateway of Rockville? That's the part I never understood.
Well, what you gotta be cautious of is, remember, we operate fairly large trucks,
Yeah.
and they're hard to turn around. So if you pull one of our garbage trucks into that existing Rockville Center, it's a 5-point turnaround to get the truck turned the opposite direction.
Well, no, I'm
Leanna's
talking,
even smaller than that, so Leanna, they usually try to back in and out of it. But also the roadways. You know, Rockville Road is not a very wide road, but we don't have any problem with it, and we're not on it very far. You know, to put us in the middle of nowhere, out of sight, out of mind, is creating a lot of safety issues for the drivers, and it's also creating a lot of opportunities for those that prefer not to wait till we're open to throw trash on the side of the road. So where I'm going with that is, if we want to move this center and we want to service Rockville, we need a piece of property that's on Highway 99, right off the main drag.
Yeah.
And we need it large enough that we can get people in and out of it and not back up the highway.
all right, but so let me ask you this then. If 2 acres is the ideal number for now, knowing that growth is coming and will continue to come, this piece of property is going to be too small 3 years from now. 2 years from now.
It depends on what you try to do. And ask me that question next month when the mayor's here. I might get myself in trouble if he's not here.
Mr. Chairman, I have some information for the meeting.
What kind of information do you have, Mr. Williams?
I got a handout of this thing so we can look at this. The existing center. Some maps. If y'all would suspend the rules, let me come up here, I'd be glad to.
You want to get it back for next month, or?
Well, we would need to vote on suspension of the rules. Mr. Williams would like to pass out information, and I think we all know where Mr. Williams stands on this particular topic. So I'm happy to bring it to a vote. We would need, I think, a simple majority, don't we, to suspend the rules? I think so, yeah. So I will make the motion to suspend the rules. We would need a second and then a vote of at least we would need 4 positive votes to suspend the rules. So I'll make the motion to suspend the rules, and we would need a second. All right, seeing none, then that motion fails. All right, Matt, continue on.
Okay, my next line of thing to bring up is contamination of the recycled commodities. When Mr. Jameson was up here speaking, he was talking about education. And we've tried to educate as much as we can. We have signage, we have everything. We just have residents that are not willing to do the right thing. That's our problem. Like our school single stream program, where we're picking up the recyclables and been taking them to Waste Management in Nashville to be recycled. We've recycled 1 load since fall break. The rest of them have been contaminated, they've gone to the landfill. So we're having a huge problem with contamination. Education and the outreach in the schools is going as well as we would hope for, and in the centers as well. We have 2 convenience centers, recycling centers, that probably 75% of their loads of plastic goes to landfill. The rest of the centers, the residents are doing a pretty good job. So contamination is a large issue for us, and it's something that we've got to overcome at some point. By overcoming that, not only education, but it's going to take turning people away. If they're not going to do the right thing, you just need to go somewhere else. You need to pay to have your trash picked up at home or something. And the other thing I was wanting to bring up is we've got 3 new schools that's supposed to open here in Rutherford County next school year, 2 counties and 1 city. Our front loader route is picking up the schools. It's 1 driver and 1 truck currently, and he's running about a 46 to 48 hour work week, so it's getting into overtime every week. We've got some overtime budgeted, but it's not budgeted for that, it's budgeted more for holidays. And with the new growth, We're gonna wind up needing another front loader truck next year. We're gonna wind up putting another one on. Right now, we have one that runs trash during the week and one that runs the recycle. But to pick up the extra trash, we're gonna wind up with another truck on the street. As I've told you before, it's $103 an hour for us to operate a truck. So you can do the math and see what it's gonna cost to put another truck on the street. So I just want to give you that heads up, because when I sit down with the mayor, I'm gonna ask for another front loader truck in the budget, and you're looking at somewhere in the neighborhood of $300,000. Any questions?
How do we educate on the contamination? Or maybe our friends at Republic are, from a national scale, have some interest that they could point us to.
Our residents are spoiled.
Yeah.
Big time spoiled. The agreement made in 1995 was a very good agreement. It was good for the county, and it was actually good for, at that time it was BFI. Nobody at that time knew how we were gonna grow. Nobody had any clue. So our perception of our residents is trash is free. In Darren's presentation, you just saw it's almost $11 million between the city and the county. So that is not free, but perception is that it's free. So as long as you have absolutely zero invested in anything, how much do you care about that? The way we're designed and set up right now, it is much cheaper and very much easier for you to put everything in one trash bag and throw it away. There's no reason for you to recycle.
Yeah.
Financial reason.
Right.
So until trash starts costing you something, that's when it's gonna change.
Yeah, that's true.
We'd be willing to share. We have a bunch of recycling education materials that we give you guys access to, and if you want to put it in your newsletters and stuff, to have residents go that, where they can watch videos and see what's the right thing to do, and it's an issue across the country. I mean, but it's pretty simple, consistent message that we're putting out there to all the residents, and it's something we can share, and you guys can put on the county and the city website to point them to say, this is something as a resident, and the schools too, that say this is something everybody needs to look at and read, understand.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, we would appreciate that.
Well, and in the future too, is something that we're gonna have to look at, and it's gonna kind of partly answer the question you had about the size of the centers. With the population supposed to double in the next 25, 35, whatever that number is convenience center style operation of trash collection the right way to go with that large population? I'm gonna tell you right now, it's not.
Yeah.
Now, will convenience centers go away? No. Because your curbside collection, you're still gonna have bulk items and missed trash days and things like that, so the centers will still need to exist. They just won't be near as busy as they are. Any other questions? The last thing I've got on there is item number 3 under that is unit per measure for trash that we came up with. We developed it ourselves. It's 30 students generate 1 cubic yard of trash per week. And the way we came up with that was doing trash audits and student populations in all city and county schools. And when we first did that trash audit, that number ranged from 2 students at one school generating a cubic yard per week to 50 students at another school. It's like, wow, why such a big, fast number? So then broke that down to do a little bit different. We got city elementary schools, county elementary schools, county middles, and county highs. Separate those into those particular groups. City schools should operate the same, would think. County elementary, middle, highs operate the same. So we started dividing those numbers. And when we first came up with it, it was roughly 25 kids, because that was the true number in the center. 25 students generated a cubic yard of trash a week. So that's roughly a classroom, depending on what school you're in. We bumped that number up to 30. And then when school starts back for next year, we'll probably bump it up to 35. The schools, all the schools can get their containers, and they buy their own. All we do is go in there and dump them and tell them what days a week we can be in that area. So they get, in the past, have been able to tell us how much trash they're gonna throw away. By doing this calculation, now we're telling them how much trash we're actually gonna pick up. So the only way to get the schools to do the right thing to recycle is to start lowering their trash ability. And once they lower that, then they'll recycle the stuff that they can recycle. The contamination in the schools is bagged commodities. The recycle companies do not want it in a bag. They want the commodity loose. And that's what's killing us, is they're bagging it and throwing it away. And they've got a lot of cardboard and that type of items in their trash. You know, so if we keep reducing that amount of trash service, then they'll get that cardboard out. But that's where that number came from, and it took a long time to come up with it. But it's a number that they really can't argue. And it's a number that they showed us can work. We're just going to make them have to tighten up on it. We've talked about charging the schools and all that kind of stuff. We can't charge them, but we can't control how much they can throw away.
To get them back to the 30, I missed.
That's the level of service that we're providing now. And we get calls quite often, we need more service, need more service. Well, how many students do you have? They'll give me that number. Well, this is how many containers you have, and this is how often we're coming. So some of the high schools have 96 cubic yards of trash availability space to throw away. That's trash, not counting recycled, per week. Based on their population, they only need 68 cubic yards. So where are they generating that extra trash? Outside dumping's a lot of it. Teachers bring it from home.
But all the locks, we purchased all that.
We never purchased them, and they never put them on. The schools didn't want us to do that.
I thought we funded them.
We were going to, but they didn't want us to do it, so it never got done.
Check what cut.
Any other questions?
So you're saying for the schools, to get them to do right, you're gonna try to just pick up part of the trash and leave part of the trash?
No, we will limit the amount of space that they have to where we'll come and get what the volume would be for 30 students generating a cubic yard of trash, and then they'll have to reduce the rest of the trash or recycle it.
So you're gonna reduce the number of containers?
We've already done that. We did that 3 years ago when we first started this process.
What are you gonna reduce now?
We're gonna raise that number from 30 to 35 students, which is gonna make them have to recycle more. And we've told the schools, if you need more recycle capability, we'll gladly let you have that, but no more trash.
Are you getting a lot of paper plates and stuff through the school
Yeah.
system? And are all the schools set up with plates that can be washed? And
Part of the problem with the school system is they have a dishwasher person that runs the dishwasher. And if that person doesn't show up, then they immediately go to paper plates and they call us, hey, our trash bin's full. It's not our problem that their people don't show up. So the next phone call I get that asks that question is, okay, well, my driver goes on vacation, will y'all wait a week till he gets back for your trash to get dumped? You know, they're calling it being shorthanded. Well, they need to train more than one person to operate that dishwasher. And then you get rid of the paper plates completely and go to washing them. There's an article I read just today. There's a college up north deals with students. They've got several cafeterias, and they started looking at their food waste and really reduced the amount of stuff that they was throwing away by how much they were putting out. On their salad bar, you want the salad bar to look really full. They put false bottoms in it to where there's a whole lot less food on it, but it looked just as full, so they reduced the waste that way. And then on a lot of to-go things, they had two things. You know, here's your regular to-go throwaway thing, and here's your returnable one. And a lot of the students were actually paying for the returnable one and bringing it back, letting them wash it and do that. So it's those type of ideas that we're going to have to go through. But what we've said in the past, and we're going to say it a whole lot again, and Dan mentioned it, saying that culture change. We've got to change the culture.
All right, thank you, Mac. Anything else? Did we approve? We need a motion to accept and approve Mac's reports.
Motion to approve his reports as presented.
Thank you. Need a second.
Second.
We have a second. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, do we have, does anybody on the committee have any other business they'd like to discuss? All right, seeing none.
I've got one question
Yes, sir.
for this gentleman,
Yes, sir.
if I could ask him. What they're coming to California to view, is that a compost facility?
Okay.
Will it be that much different than the one they viewed in Gatlinburg versus
Dramatically.
actually what it does other than just size?
Dramatically, it'll be a lot different, because you'll see it source separated already up front.
Okay. But the end product is the same?
Right. Well, there's some different uses and things that you're seeing, and like you saw up there, it's a magic mixture as to, you know, and it depends on where the end product's going. So some people want one thing and some people want another.
Okay. Thank you.
All right. Republic, thanks for your attendance. Darren, thank you for the presentation. And all of you, my engineering buddies in the back, thank you for attending. And meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.